All right, welcome back to All Day Live. Rob Wilson sitting in for Amy Hockert. You know, a lot of developments in the last 24 hours in the disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie. Again, she was last seen on the 31st. And last night we saw, certainly yesterday afternoon, we brought it to you here on All Day Live, video from her doorbell camera showing somebody outside with a mask, appeared to have a gun in a holster covering the camera. And then last night we heard reports of a man being detained for questioning who has since been released after some 8 hours or so of questioning. We're going to be joined now by Fox 10 Phoenix reporter Ashley Rodriguez, joining us from outside Nancy Guthrie's home. And thank you for joining us. What new information have they released now this morning? Anything following the questioning of this man who was at one point labeled maybe a suspect, maybe it's a person of interest, somebody they just wanted to question. What do we know since he's been let go?
Rob, it's so funny that you say that there's been a lot of developments in the last 24 hours, but at the same time, there's been no developments. So what we have today is we have a statement from the FBI, and they told us that they are going to be extensively searching multiple roadways in the Catalina foothills area, which is where I'm at right now. So that could mean that they either have new clues, new tips, or they're starting from scratch. And a lot of people were disappointed to hear that this man who says he was detained in connection with Nancy's disappearance was released, because that brought a lot of people hope when that alert came out last night. Now, this man, his name is Carlos Palenzuelos, he told us that he was detained during a traffic stop last night and then taken in for questioning. He said to reporters that he was completely shocked by this. He said, "I'm innocent. I have nothing to do with this." In fact, he told us that he doesn't even know who the Guthries are, and he doesn't watch the news, so he had no idea what was going on. And then his mother-in-law went and told the media that authorities came last night and searched their home. She gave them permission to, because she said they had nothing to hide. So then, yeah, they released him. We're going to go ahead and just move forward from that. I can tell you, yesterday we were out here and we saw authorities going to the neighborhood of Annie Guthrie's house. That's nearby. That is Nancy's other daughter. They were going door to door, talking to neighbors, trying to see if they saw anything. We've reached out to the Pima County Sheriff's Department to get an update, because remember, the last time Sheriff Nanos has given us any confirmation of anything was almost a week ago, last Thursday. So we're waiting to hear from them if they have any new leads or anything that they're excited to share. But I can say that I've been hearing that since these surveillance images were released, tons of tips have been pouring in, which is good news, because in many cases, abduction cases or kidnappings are solved through public tips. But it also means that the task before authorities is still so monumental. And 11 days into this disappearance, and we still don't know where Nancy is.
Yeah,
Rob.
Yeah, and you mentioned all the tips that are coming in, and it sounds like this Carlos, who was stopped and questioned, his that came in off of one of these tips that came in that somebody maybe thought he might be the person seen in that doorbell video. What have you heard there?
So the only thing I have to tell you about that is he told the media. Again, we have to couch this in the fact that authorities have not confirmed to us that that is in fact the guy that they detained. So Carlos told the media, hey, the authorities detained me in connection with Nancy. He said that he was told that based on the surveillance video images, his face, and his cell phone data, that authorities somehow pinged his location to this area Sunday morning, early Sunday morning. And you have to remember, he was detained in Rio Rico, which is where he lives. That's about 60 miles or so from here, about an hour away. So that's all we've heard. But again, authorities are being so tight-lipped. They really are not telling us much, that we can't even confirm to you that this is in fact the guy that was detained. So waiting on that update. I can tell you right here at the scene right now, it's quiet. We have one police cruiser behind me. And again, we have that update from the FBI saying that they're going to have authorities out searching the roadways. So we're expecting to see some activity out here, but nothing conclusive.
Yeah, and
nothing hopeful to tell you.
Yeah.
It's people are starting to fear the worst.
those searches, those new searches that you're talking about, that's right in the area around Nancy Guthrie's home or in that neighborhood. Kind of give us the layout here of how close that is to where she was taken.
Yeah, so we have Tucson, and then north of Tucson is where I am. It's just outside of Tucson. It's called the Catalina Foothills, and as we've been describing this area, it has a lot of brush, it has a lot of cacti, it has a lot of trees. You can just see behind me some of the landscaping. It's thick. It's hard to see your neighbor's house. The driveways are windy. The streets are windy. In fact, this is an area that does not allow for light pollution. These are people that like to see the stars, and they have houses that are far apart from each other. So the fact that they're telling us that they are searching multiple roadways today, I mean, you can conclude what you want from that. You can speculate that they're potentially looking for clues or even a body, which, again, is it because tips are coming in and they know something that they're not telling us, or they just are starting from scratch and once again going back to search and rescue?
Yeah.
Just search and recovery.
You mentioned the searches around Annie Guthrie's home. That's Savannah's older sister. That happened in the last, was it yesterday or was it the day before where they searched near her home?
So last night, that's when we saw authorities, and they weren't searching her home. They were in the neighborhood, pretty much going door to door, knocking on people's doors. Have you seen anything? Which kind of tipped us off. Maybe they got a tip in that something happened, and it started in Annie's neighborhood. Over the weekend, we saw them actually go into her home and search, which requires a search warrant. So again, do they know something? Do they have some kind of evidence that they presented to a judge to get that search warrant? And they came out with evidence bags, but without any confirmation from authorities. This is all speculation.
Yeah, so much unknown here, and those questions continue to just mount. And especially as you mentioned, it's this person who was detained and questioned is saying he was detained and questioned with no confirmation from the authorities here, from the sheriff's department, that yes, this was the same person. We're just having to take his word for it, because why else, would he have any other motivation to say that if it wasn't him?
And Rob, we have to remember that the release of those surveillance images is huge. It really is huge. It could lead to a break in this case. I mean, at least we have something to go off of. It's terrifying, just the imagery of that man masked with a gun. So from what I understand from law enforcement experts, there's a lot that they can gather just from those images. They can look at the eyes, they can look at the body language, the gait, the build, the height, and they could potentially involve AI to get a better sense of what the face would look like. And then, putting that out to the public, that could jog someone's memory or make someone think, I know eyes like that or something. So with the new tips coming in, with the images that we have now, there is hope that we will see some developments in the coming days, Rob.
Yeah, one final question here, and that is, you mentioned that we haven't heard anything from authorities. They haven't had a on-camera briefing here. What has been the relationship like with the sheriff's department and others during this? I saw that, we saw on X where they said, please, media, don't order food to the crime scene. And I don't know what that was all about, but I don't know if that led to some breakdown in maybe some of the relationship there about saying, please respect the crime scene. What's been happening?
Yeah, we're out here all day. We're hungry. We might as well bring tents and beds at this point. I mean, the entire block is taken over. These poor neighbors, these poor residents, they're so sick of us. And yes, one of my colleagues probably made the mistake of getting a pizza delivered to this house. But that being said, the FBI hasn't really spoken to us other than the statement today. Sheriff Nanos was really talkative the first day, last Monday, and he was doing one-on-ones with the media, and he was readily available. And then when I was at the press conference on Tuesday, he pretty much walked that back and was like, look, guys, I got to focus. I have so much work. And In talking with law enforcement experts about how this investigation has been conducted, they are critical. They say that Sheriff Nanos has been bumbling. He's been walking words back. He's been showing emotion, and kind of unprofessional behavior. I mean, this is a relatively small town. This is probably the biggest case that he's ever had to deal with, which is a good thing that the FBI are involved. But after that feedback, and I guess the pressure on him from all of these media requests, I think he started to shut down. So then the last time we heard from him was another press conference on Thursday, and we have not heard anything since.
Yeah.
So now we're almost a week out from that, and we are all pressing the sheriff's department to give us something, because the speculation just keeps going and going and going, and we just want to know, where is this investigation at? Do you have any critical hard leads that you're following right now, and can we still have hope that Nancy's alive, that an 84-year-old woman is out there somewhere and you can find her? I mean, you could just imagine if it was your mother. It's heartbreaking. Rob?
Yeah, certainly. Those lines of communication, even if they don't have much to update you on, at least it's you feel like there's still a flow of information, or that we don't have more information, but that communication line remains open.
And Rob, I don't want to be too critical, because I think all of us can agree that this is such an odd case.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've had ransom notes come in involving Bitcoin and deadlines that have come and passed and nothing happened. I mean, these alleged ransom notes were asking for, $6 million in Bitcoin, but then never had opened a line of communication with the Guthrie family in the first place. So I guess they were illegitimate. Who would want to take an 84-year-old woman out of her home? There's just so many things that we do not understand. Why is there blood at the front door? Did this person know her? Was she targeted? Was this random? Is this about Savannah Guthrie? So we are all hoping and praying that investigators are getting closer and closer to some kind of hard break in the case.
Ashley Rodriguez, thank you for taking an extended time with us here today to talk about this. I know it's been pressing on a lot of people here across the country, and a lot of work being done out there. Thanks again.
No problem, and I will not be ordering pizza.
Good to know. Thank you much. All right, we got to take a quick break here on All Day Live. A busy day here, but we will be right back.
for you.
All right, welcome back to All Day. Rob Olson in for Amy Hockert again today. And a little bit ago, we took you to the House Judiciary Committee. It's the Department of Justice oversight hearing where Attorney General Pam Bondi has been facing a lot of questions on a number of topics here. This has been going on now for 4 hours. We were talking about the Epstein files, talking about investigations into the shootings related to immigration enforcement. We're going to dip back in and take a listen for a little bit more.
Who is Chris Malin?
Was the president aware? Please stop talking. It is not your time to ask questions. It is not your time. I'm reclaiming my time, Mr. Chair.
One second.
Time belongs to the gentlelady from Vermont.
Was the president aware of Secretary Lutnick's ties to Epstein when he chose him to lead the Department of Commerce? Was he aware?
Chris Malin was a Border Patrol agent.
Okay, so I'm going to conclude that the president, in fact, did know about his ties because he was the next door neighbor.
Shame on you.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
You're
this
from
is
a tiny,
pathetic.
beautiful
This is pathetic, Mr.
Committee will be in order.
I am not asking trick questions here.
You
The
got your
American
5
people
minutes.
have a right to know the answers to this. These are senior officials in the Trump administration. This is not a game, Secretary.
I'm Attorney General.
My apologies, I couldn't tell. By 2008, we knew that Epstein was a convicted sexual abuser. And we now know that Lutnick went to Epstein's Island in 2012. How was that not a deal breaker for the president? And why aren't you asking questions of the Commerce Secretary about what he saw when he was at the island, which he lied about not ever going to? Why are you not asking these questions? And I see that my time is almost expired, so I will say this.
Shame.
Do the right thing, Attorney General. Meet with the survivors. They have been asking for a year. Meet with the survivors. Do the right thing. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
May I have 20 seconds of his time?
That'll be up to the gentleman, but
Absolutely, Madam.
Thank you. Thank you. I was curious if you, Congresswoman, asked Bill Clinton that. Didn't see one tweet, not one. I didn't see one tweet when Joe Biden was in office about Bill Clinton. Didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein, not once when he was.
Weak sauce. Weak
And
sauce.
also, I want the record to reflect that, with this anti-Semitic culture right now, she voted against a resolution condemning.
Oh,
Is
Jewish.
I just want to be clear.
Do you want to go there, Attorney General? Or do you want to go there? Are you
belongs to the
serious?
gentleman
Talking
from
about
South
anti-Semitism
Carolina.
to a woman who lost her grandfather in the Holocaust?
my time. I reclaim my time.
Really?
the committee will be in order.
Talk to Jared Wise about anti-Semitism.
The ranking member knows that.
Can I get like 30 seconds back,
Yeah, I've been.
Ballant took
I think
30
the
of
whole
mine.
committee knows. I've been very
All right,
generous in
thank you.
making sure everyone gets their 5 minutes in the
Attorney
same.
General, I'm going to talk about sanctuary cities for a second, which limit the federal government's ability to enforce immigration law. They're kind of a new thing that Democrat jurisdictions are doing. They're in violation of federal law. During President Trump's first term, he rightly targeted sanctuary jurisdictions to try to force them to cooperate with federal immigration law. Federal immigration law, mind you, that was voted on in 1996, most recently, in a bipartisan Congress, signed by a Democrat president. But they are in violation of that law. These states and jurisdictions feel entitled to certain grants, of course. Y'all are combating that. Do sanctuary policies limit the federal government's ability to accurately estimate how many criminal illegals are in the country?
Yes.
Thank you. This means that the number of illegals could be higher, probably higher. Does this hurt the federal government's ability to carry out immigration laws designed by Congress?
Yes, Congressman.
In your opinion, do you believe that the Biden-Harris administration and Democrat pro-sanctuary policies make our communities safer and for the American taxpayer? Do sanctuary policies make our communities safer?
No, Congressman.
I want to do a brief video to highlight sanctuary cities. So what's strange to me, if you look at this board behind me, in New York, there are 7,000 criminal illegal aliens since January 20th of last year that have been released into the public because New York is not honoring detainers requested by ICE. California, similarly, has released 4,500 criminal illegal aliens. There are 33,000 under detainer in California alone. And of the people released, I think it's remarkable that those released in New York, 29 homicides, 2,500 assaults, almost 200 burglaries. These are people that are released into our community by these states that refuse to cooperate. Last August, Michael Jordan Castellano Fonseca, a criminal illegal alien with ties to Tren de Agua, shot 2 people in front of 5 children in the sanctuary state of Colorado. DHS lodged a detainer on him. He's awaiting trial, but the question is whether Colorado's sanctuary policies will prevent him from being removed from the country. Yes or no? Do you think that sanctuary jurisdictions, if they cooperated with ICE, those illegals in custody could be transferred to ICE properly instead of being held in taxpayer-funded jails and then released into our community?
Yes, Congressman.
Wouldn't it be more efficient and safer then if Democrats simply cooperated with the federal government, these sanctuary jurisdictions cooperated with the federal government and honored ICE detainers? And why? Why do you think?
Of course, because so many criminals are running to sanctuary jurisdictions. Many of your colleagues across the aisle who we've seen speaking today about Epstein don't want to talk about the illegal criminals in their own jurisdiction for that reason. And yes, we need to do everything we can to work together to make America safer, and they're not doing that.
This is not a partisan issue. People want to feel safe in their communities. Nobody wants a criminal illegal alien released into the street. I think the thing that maybe the American people don't quite understand is that when you do not honor a detainer, as we've seen, an illegal is released into the public, and now it's up to ICE to maybe apprehend them, rather than behind the courtroom passing them off from one law enforcement to the next. Is that true?
Absolutely.
What do you think what is the Department of Justice doing right now to combat sanctuary policies in our country?
We're doing everything in our power, obviously, to combat that. Donald Trump is doing everything he can because we are going to make America safe. We are going to get illegal criminal aliens out of this country. We're going to get the gangs out, TDA, MS-13, all of the gangs in this country. We're going to get the drug dealers out and the drugs, and that's what we've been fighting to do. And I wish we could do it on a bipartisan basis, but they just can't do it.
And the decrease in numbers speak for themselves. Thank you for your work.
Gentleman's time.
Mr. Chairman, we have some UCs, if that's okay.
That is okay.
Mr. Cohen.
Thank you. You see on the National Institute of Justice's study on undocumented immigrants having an offender rate lower than U.S.-born citizens. I'd like to enter this in the record from 2024.
Without objection.
And I have several myself, Mr. Chairman. The Guardian, January 26, 2026, why is Trump granting clemency to convicted fraudsters?
Without objection.
January 20, 2026, NBC, Trump's pardons forgive financial crimes that came with hundreds of millions of dollars in punishment.
Without objection.
Washington Post, December 19, 2025, Trump's pardons wipe out payments to defrauded victims.
Without objection.
And finally, May 30th, 2024, Trump found guilty by Manhattan jury on 34 felony counts of fraud.
Without objection. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, glad you finally made it here after hiding for 4 months from this committee.
All right, we've been listening into a Department of Justice oversight hearing. This is in the House Judiciary Committee. Began about 4 hours ago with Attorney General Pam Bondi, and you can see the very contentious, combative nature of this questioning as it goes back and forth between Republican and Democratic members on this committee, discussing Epstein files, discussing immigration crackdown, sanctuary city policies there, and detainers, which have, of course, become